Well, it's been forever since we've had a full-on Watchmen movie, and it's coming back to life in DC animation. The film is set for a 2024 release date, but how are they going to do this in one 90-minute movie? Well, we might already have the answer. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about Watchmen, where it's going, and how I think DC Animation is going to pull this off. Well, if you're a fan of Watchmen, you've got something to look forward to next year. We found out from DC Animation the film is getting an animated adaptation, but we got very few details in the announcement. Now, it was also announced with Crisis on Infinite Earth, and since then, we found out, reportedly, that film will be broken into multiple parts, and we've been wondering if that could happen to Watchmen. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the comic, it's legendary. The 12-issue series by Alan Moore ran from September 1986 to October 1987, and is considered by some to be one of the greatest comic book stories ever. Now, this comic is complex and requires time, and personally, I find it absolutely impossible they could even conceive in doing this in 90 minutes to 2 hours. The Zack Snyder adaptation was well north of 3 hours, and the motion comic, which I do recommend you check out, I've tried to link it down below, was well over 5, meaning this story needs room to breathe, and rushing it will absolutely break it. Now, we found out a couple of weeks ago what was going on with Crisis, and this leads to some speculation on why there were only 2 movies announced for 2024. Over the last couple of years, DC Animation has been dropping 3 or 4 projects every year. So when we got only 2, at first many of us thought that was an abbreviated schedule, but now I think that's been revealed. Now, this isn't coming from DC Animation, this is a theory on our part, but all the signs point to this being true. I 100% believe that Watchmen, like Crisis on Infinite Earth, will be broken into 3 parts. Both series are 12 issues long. A 90-minute film is really the perfect length for 4 issues of a comic series, and the schedules would complement each other over the next year. With DC Animation on a 3 to 4 animated projects per year release basis, I 100% suspect that we will indeed get Crisis on Infinite Earth Part 1, followed by Watchmen Part 1, then followed up with Crisis Part 2, Watchmen Part 2, and then Crisis Part 3, and Watchmen Part 3 probably in 2025. Giving this project this much room to grow and breathe will result in a much truer adaptation than even the movie and the television series. If you're familiar with the comic, you know Zack Snyder took a lot of creative liberties with the original movie, and although it is an all-time favorite of mine, I do quite honestly enjoy the ending from the comics. The series picked up with that ending and wasn't so tied to the movie as it was the comic, but it also left out that original story that sets it all up that's so wonderful and left many fans wondering what was going on. I think if you're going to do Watchmen, you absolutely have to do it right. It's not something that can be rushed or compressed. There's serious aspects to this story, well, really with any Alan Moore story, that needs to be explored for the full understanding of the story to be comprehended by the audience. And I think since they already expanded what they're doing with Crisis, another story that takes time to marinate, well, I think Watchmen will fall into the same boat. Now, like I said, this hasn't been confirmed yet. This is a theory on our part, but it would make a ton of sense, and really the only way anybody who likes the Watchmen really can conceive of this being adapted in a way that works for the original content. When we finally get some more news from DC Animation, well, we're gonna have to wait and see.